It is important to remember that poets often write because their thoughts and feelings have been stirred by events. Ted Hughes is generally known for dealing with the subjects of violence, savagery, barbarism, death, and destruction in his poems. Hello and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to my channel, and I am Mehreen. At the time of appointment as the new Poet Laureate in November 1984, one newspaper headline called his poetry a poetic voice of blood and guts. People think that Ted Hughes is a difficult poet. His poetry is not easily understood like that of his predecessors. Also, he is still frequently described as a poet of blood and violence. One way of helping students to enjoy his work is to approach it through an understanding of the man himself and the experiences which have made him what he is and which have shaped the ideas which motivate him. Hughes began writing poetry when he was about 15, and his first book of poems was published when he was 27. He was born in the small Yorkshire village on August 17, 1930, and his star sign is Leo. By the way, my own star is also Leo. This star sign is of some significance to Hughes, whose first wife Sylvia Plath once described him as having pockets stuffed with horoscopes. Leo is symbolized in ancient astrological writings as Corvus, the raven, a bird which is closely related to the crow. And Hughes often uses a crow as a symbol for the dark, subconscious side of human nature. Here I find it important to talk about Yorkshire. Yorkshire covers a large part of north of England. In the western part, where Hughes was born, it is rugged country of bare moors and mountains, often cold, rainy and windy in summer and bleak and snowy in winter. This part of England was the home of the Bronte family and the setting for Emily Bronte's novel Wuthering Heights, and the people who are born there have certain characteristics which set them apart from other English people. They are tough, hardy breed. This area was once so inaccessible that it became an ideal place to hide. And the significance of all this is that Hughes is frequently accused of writing poetry which is unnecessarily rough and violent, when he is simply blunt Yorkshire man describing things as he sees them. Ted Hughes, as a man and as a poet, frequently does not conform to the conventions which society expects of him, and naturally this upsets people. Having grown up in a working class background, Hughes left high school with a scholarship to Cambridge University, where the literary set came mostly from the upper class. He quickly established a reputation for being rather wild. The violent atmosphere of his poem was influenced, according to him, by his father's accounts of service in World War I and his own early experiences on the moors, a dramatic landscape where he hunted small games with his brother and became an avid observer of natural world. He, in his poetry, gave a voice to the intense struggle between the hunter and the hunted, the human and the divine. Animals appear frequently throughout his work as deity, metaphor, persona, and icon. Perhaps the most famous of his subjects is crow, an amalgam of god, bird, and man whose existence seems pivotal to the knowledge of good and evil. Now, physically, Hughes was tall, I think over 6 feet, and dark. He liked to wear black clothing and he was often careless of his appearances. He was clever, strong minded, and outspoken, and his interests cover a huge range of topics, including magic, mythology, world, religions, language, and music. And these are not the conventional topics. At Cambridge University in 1956, Hughes met the American poet Sylvia Plath, who was continuing her studies on a Fulbright fellowship, and within 4 months of that meeting, they were married. The intensity and tumultuousness of their relationship could be realized by the account of their first meeting, when Sylvia Plath told in her journals that when they met for the first time in a student party, Hughes when kissed her on her neck. She bit him on his cheek so hard that it started to bleed. And when they came out of the room, his face was full of blood. The intensity of their relationship was expressed in the poetry that each of them wrote at that time. Ted Hughes, for example, wrote, "There is no better way to know us than as two wolves come separately to a wood. Now neither's able to sleep, even at a distance, distracted by the soft competing pulse of the other. Neither can make die the painful burning of the coal in its heart till the other's body and the whole wood are its own. Then it might sob contentment toward the moon." It is characteristic of Hughes that this is not a conventional romantic poem. Similarly, in a poem of Sylvia's called The Queen's Complaint, we get some idea of the impact which Ted Hughes made on her. For example, "In the ruck and quibble of court folk, this giant hulked, I tell you, on her scene with hands like derricks, looks fierce and black like rooks. Why, all the windows broke when he stalked in." It is also a fact that for 7 years, Ted and Sylvia lived together, apparently quite happily. Then, just after the birth of their second child, Nicholas, things went badly wrong. Ted fell in love with another woman, and by mutual agreement, he and Sylvia parted and began divorce proceedings. Sylvia and the 2 children lived on in their house in Devon for a while. Then they moved to a flat in London. It was the worst winter England had experienced for many years. Sylvia, who had always suffered painful sinus problems, was ill, but she was writing furiously and producing at least 1 good poem a day, sometimes 2 or 3. Physically and emotionally, she was at the end of her tether, and she sought psychiatric help. Plath suspected Hughes of infidelity, first falsely, but then correctly, when Hughes met Assia Wivel, a German-born cosmopolitan woman who had been married 3 times. At that time, she was married to the Canadian poet David Wivel. In February 1963, Sylvia Plath committed suicide by gassing herself. No one will ever know the full story. Sylvia had attempted suicide at least once before when she was 20. On that occasion, she had been found by a fortunate accident and she subsequently spent some time in a psychiatric hospital being treated for depression. Much of what she experienced then appears in her novel, The Bell Jar, which was written and published shortly before her death. The detailed biography of Sylvia Plath is also present on my channel. If you want to visit, go ahead. Sylvia's death affected Hughes profoundly. He stopped writing poetry for nearly 3 years while editing and publishing Plath's poems. He also helped her collecting of poems, Ariel, to gain public recognition. Hughes never recovered from his wife's death. Hughes divided his time between London and Court Green, his Devon house. Plath's death made Hughes a pariah, an outcast among some members of literary community, and especially feminist critics cited Plath's poems where Hughes was represented as a brute. Hughes' name was chipped off her tombstone in Yorkshire, and his poetry readings were disrupted by shouts of murder, murderer. The writer Germaine Greer later admitted that Ted Hughes existed to be punished. The memory of Plath started to haunt Wivel, who feared the Hughes will leave her. The tragedy continued when Assia Wivel killed herself and Shura, their daughter, in 1969. She gave Shura sleeping pills and turned on the gas oven, lying down with her own mattress. After Plath's death, Hughes had several affairs and he took up various causes, among them the preservation of salmon in British rivers. Significantly, during the past 30 years, during which Hughes has remained a poet thoroughly dedicated to the art of poetry, he has shown clear signs of a maturing vision. Equally remarkable is the fact that Hughes has treated of many modern concerns like war and violence with an awareness which is lacking in many of his contemporary poets. No wonder then that Hughes has become a major poet during the last 30 years and been appointed the Poet Laureate. I hope you would have learned a lot from this video, and I have tried to cover some major facts and figures of Ted Hughes' life. Let's meet in the next video, and do tell me in the comment box what do you want to listen next from me. So till then, keep watching my videos, keep waiting for the next videos, keep subscribing to my channel, and thanks for being with Mehreen for such a long time.